Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple. Recommend Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You get a little sooner with Spotify. Also on Android, use Spotify or check out the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Off the Floor, that's our Discord server. We have our most members there that we've ever had. So join them. The migration continues. The most heat information, conversation, the stage shows. And something that we used to do during games somewhere else, we may be doing on Off the Floor this year. So you're going to want to be subscribed. $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description, and you'll bypass the Apple upcharge. Also, check out Prize Picks. MLB All-Star Game just happened. You could have played that, but the WNBA is in that mode as well. Make sure you get on Prize Picks now. Use the code 5. Get your $50. Start learning how to play. You'll be ready for NBA, NHL, and NFL seasons. So check it out. It's Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. Get your $50. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's about have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. Got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. I'm just back from Las Vegas. So make sure that you check out all the coverage, not just by myself, but also our guy Adele did a great job out there. I actually just put another video up on the YouTube channel that he and I did together while we were out there kind of assessing play. We're at all of the Heat games. There is one Heat game left, actually. If you're listening to this, you may be listening to before it. And then that will be it. The team did win his last game. Pelle Larsson looks like a rotation player. And actually, before we get into today's topic, which is LeBron, which will dwarf all of this stuff. But a couple takeaways I get at why I think this summer league has actually been good for the Heat. This is not carrying water. This is just my assessment. There were two things that I think needed to happen. The one thing that's not great is it does not look like they found anybody. Greg's leaving for the summer league coverage. It does not look like they found anything in terms of any of these players that they brought onto the roster. So let's start with that. Like, I don't see a two-way on the roster that really warrants it, including Golden, who they gave one to already, although I can see why they're bringing him in. They have no bigs. And he at least, it seems to be, positionally competes and all that kind of stuff. But the slow feet, I think, are going to hurt him. You see it when he's out on the perimeter specifically. But two things I think have been useful that are more impactful anyway. One is they found a way to trigger Kel'el Ware to play harder. If nothing else, this summer league was a success to have Erik Spoelstra kind of get out of his comfort zone and call out a player publicly, and for it to work, which I actually think bodes well for the team going forward, not just for Ware, but for Spoelstra. And that's a topic I know, Greg, you and I probably being on Mateo Mayorga, Sean Rochester to talk about that over the next week. So let's not forget that one because I think that's important. But also now they know that Ware will respond. We saw him respond in 2 straight games, and that's good too because other players we've compared him to, and I'm not going to do that now because he didn't act the same way. Did not necessarily respond. They went into a shell and they got worse, and he did not do that. The second thing is they have developed a rotation player. Pelle Larsson's a rotation player. And I think you see it putting the ball in his hands more often. There's some sloppy stuff with the turnovers and all that kind of stuff, but his competition level is so high, and he does have a skill level that I think they've tapped into here. So that's before we get into LeBron, my overall takeaway is if you get nothing else out of this summer league, those two things matter more than maybe finding a real quality two-way, which I don't think that they found. I'll let you get in on that, and then we'll get to Bron.
Yeah, I mean, my primary takeaways from Summer League are pretty similar to yours. A couple things that I do think are worth noting. They didn't look great, particularly on offense, nor shoot great. And I just want to remind everybody that like 4 of the 5 starters are on standard contracts. So like this is players that like may play this year. So when it didn't look great, part of me obviously knows that this is not the real group and people are being stretched beyond their normal roles, obviously. But it also doesn't feel great when things look as disjointed as they did. And also, I have to be honest, I was underwhelmed by Kasparas Jakubonis. And that was going into Summer League, the thing I was most excited to see develop. Like, did you have a player that can contribute in a rotation immediately? I think that's still a huge question mark, whether that's even possible. But you learned other stuff. So I think like that's the good part of it, is that because you sent guys that are going to be on your roster, because like these guys all have, I mean, they're either players you drafted or they're players that like Keshad Johnson that got a standard contract and are along for the ride, and you know they're going to be there for them to either play through things like Kalel did, or to see Larson start to pop. Like these are the things that this roster is going to need for them to uptick compared to last year. Because I mean, like, Norm Powell's going to be a really great addition, and I love the fit. I think he's a fun player, and we can talk about him another day. But let's not act like that puts them in a different stratosphere necessarily. No. So some of the margins are going to matter, and like these are the moments where you start to see, can you get some of these margins to work for you, whether it's Ware responding and getting better or Larson becoming a rotation player. So there were good takeaways, despite the fact that they felt like they shot 20% from 3 in every damn game, whether it was in California or Vegas.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, so let's pivot to Bron, because I know that's what everybody wants us to do here. And I'll start with a moment of full disclosure. Of course I want this to happen. Of course I want this. Why would I not? I run a Heat podcast and channel. And this, to me, would be perfect bow on everything in terms of a place he never should have left in the first place. Because we understand why he left, and the major reason he left was because he felt that one championship in Cleveland would do more for him ultimately than continuing to win championships in Miami. Yes, there were other factors. There were some personal factors, which I'm not going to get into. There was the issue of, Wade, and LeBron didn't want to enunciate this all the time, but he was clearly frustrated. I can tell you, as someone who, I think I covered all but 4 games home and road during the entire Big 3 era. Okay, so I saw a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and LeBron was very frustrated that Dwayne was not available, and it was not clear that Dwayne was ever going to be really available again. He became more available, and the 15-16 season in particular, he was very available, and of course helped them win a playoff series without LeBron, and might have helped them win 2, where they would have then faced LeBron if Whiteside and Bosh hadn't been out of the lineup against Toronto and they lose a Game 7. But he was frustrated that Dwayne was not Dwayne anymore, and then he didn't know if Tony Douglas was going to be starting at the 2 on a given night. So that played into it. There was some stuff with his group, although that got misreported. A lot of the stuff about them wanting tickets and all that was actually before LeBron even arrived. My understanding, it wasn't even at that stage. So to say all of that, okay, he left. If he had stayed, I still believe Pau Gasol comes. I talked to Pau Gasol about this afterwards, and he didn't say LeBron told him not to come, but LeBron told him, well, I can't guarantee I'll be there. And then Gasol signed with Chicago. They were in on Deng also. They had a shot at Lowry that offseason. That was a different Kyle Lowry. So I still believe, okay, and we'll start with this, and then we'll get into what they could actually do to get him, if they should get him, and what kind of player he is right now, because that plays into this. But do you agree with me? He won 2 championships in 4 years in Miami. Mm-hmm. He's won 2 championships in 17 years in the other places. 1 in LA that nobody gives him credit for because it was in the bubble, even though I think that's kind of bullshit. I think that was one of the hardest titles to win. And then 1 in Cleveland, which he'll always be remembered for. But other than that, the LA tenure has been kind of a disappointment. It's it's played out the way I thought it would. That he would never replace Kobe in most people's minds. I said that when he went out there at the time, and now you can see the way that people are reacting to him as he may be on the exit. That's kind of what happened. How many titles do you think he got? 2 after he left Miami? How many do you think he has right now if he never leaves the Heat?
I think he probably has 1 more than he does right now. So I think they could have rattled off 3 more.
Okay.
And that may have taken a decade to do that. But
Right.
I just think the way that they would build and the cycles that they go through and LeBron's sustained excellence, particularly like when he went back to Cleveland, he was still in unbelievable prime years. I mean, obviously, I'll always say that I think the best version of LeBron was in Miami, and I'm going to be biased about that. But he had years in Cleveland where he was dragging teams to finals against Golden State. And if you remember, like some of those Deladova-led lineups that he was dragging, I mean, it was pretty unbelievable. So I still think that the Heat would have been able to build around him, and they would have basically, I think that they would have figured out a formula of building around Bron, and they would have been able to replicate it, whether it be finding the right shooters or the right passers or the right bigs, whatever it may be as the game changed. I think that they could have done that, particularly with Spoelstra at the helm throughout all of this. But that's water under the bridge. I do think that what we're going to talk about now, it's very, very interesting for a number of reasons. But the other good thing that I think it's worth mentioning at the top here is that any ill will that existed upon his exit is now likely diffused or disappeared in almost every case that that I can see. So I think that that's also an important place to start, is that I think that the organization and the player or the players' representatives were once at odds, very cold. Those days are over.
There were really 3 elements of that. There was how LeBron felt about the Heat, how the Heat felt about LeBron, and how the fans felt about LeBron. The LeBron feeling about the Heat, I can tell you, that faded a long time ago. It was, and I say this from experience because I covered him in Cleveland in the 14-15 season. I talk about this all the time, how he would pull me aside when I got up from Miami and ask me, what the F is Riles doing now? But it was always tinged with a little bit of, he was interested. It's not like, you end a relationship and I don't care about that person anymore. He still cared. Okay. He still cared. Okay. And I think there was, he doesn't like to be disliked. This is one of the things that I got to know about him in the 4 years. He's not Kobe in that regard. He tried to be, but that first year as the villain, when he would be, I remember sitting with him in Portland after a game early in the season, and he's like, "Why don't they like me here? Like what? He was never going there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like why do people in Portland have a skin in this game? Yeah,
Portland, Memphis. Like I don't, there were places he was getting. I mean, yes, Cleveland, December 2nd, 2010. I was there. There were batteries thrown. I'll never forget that. Okay. And the craziest environment I've ever been in. Okay. And I've been in soccer stadiums in Colombia. But it was, look, that was insane. That was unique. And that was not earned in my view, but understood. Okay. Why there would be, but and even in places like New York or the bigger cities, okay, where that happened. But some of these places that, and he didn't like being the villain. He tried to be the villain. He was never comfortable with it. And I still think that is the major reason why he just collapsed under the weight in the 2011 finals. It was a year of carrying that. And I always say during the finals, I hate to say how late I was up, but it was like I saw a tweet come in as I'm sitting at a Whataburger, okay, or in a drive-through, and it was now or never. And this was between the games against Dallas. And I turned to the person I was with and I said, "Oh, they're losing tomorrow." Because the whole year was so in his head. He did not like being the villain. Okay. And so he did care about what people thought about him. And I think he cared about what the Heat thought about him. And that dissipated a long time ago. You look at the way he's talked about Spoelstra. He quotes the main thing is the main thing all the time, which of course is Pat's, number one saying and all of that. I think that he loves Bam. Okay. I think that all of that stuff is gone. Okay. In that regard, the Heat's feelings towards him, I don't think is anything near as negative as it was. And I think I know that to be the case. They've done business with Clutch. Okay. So throw that out the window. There's no issue with Clutch anymore that's significant that's going to stop them from doing any kind of business. And also, I do think there's something to this. This is not something that anybody has told me at the high levels, but I can tell you in talking to mid-level people at the organization, those who interact with players on a regular basis and all the rest of this. After the Jimmy experience, there is a lot more affection for LeBron. Okay? A lot.
That's
because
LeBron
treated people behind the scenes for the most part I heard very few negative stories. Okay. Now look, nobody is Dwayne. Okay. Like there is genuine love for Dwayne throughout that organization to the people who, including, those who, work for Heat TV throughout the years and would be working with him on projects and other things like that. There is not enough. Look, I just flew back from our flight with UD. Obviously UD is going to have everybody loves UD, but I'm talking about of the star level players there, and everybody loved Chris too, by the way, too. Okay. But Dwayne is Dwayne. Okay. There is not another Dwayne. Okay. LeBron though was, you did not hear the horror stories behind the scenes with Bron. You didn't. Okay. And I even know people who worked at the, well, we have someone we know mutually who used to do some work for the network. Okay. I think who I'm talking about, who did a lot of the in-game entertainment type stuff, who always talks about Six in the most endearing possible way. So I think a lot of that stuff, and as we get to where they go with this and where this may go, we're trying to make it clear that stuff is not the problem here. Now, what the fans think of LeBron coming back, I also think that has dissipated, although maybe not to quite the same degree as the other two elements of this. But I think most fans would be excited. Don't you?
Agree. Yeah, I think, and that's, I hesitate to go too far here because I think we'll do it after the break. But yeah, I think most Heat fans, it's LeBron James. Like at some point you have to just say that out loud and recognize it. And, not to steal thunder from the other side, but he was all NBA this year. He's in his 40s and he's making the all NBA team. This is not Jordan on the Wizards. Like we need to first get that super clear. It's not that he's necessarily the same dominant player. But the Heat fan in general, I don't think that any of that, there was like Team Petty right after he left. And I just think that most of that has it's worn off throughout the years. And like, I'm at a phase where I actually root for LeBron as wanting to see him. I heard it put the other day, Jordan could be the greatest player ever, but LeBron may have the best career ever. And I thought that was an interesting way of positioning it. So I'm all in for the best LeBron career that we could potentially see. And I'm a Heat fan, so I'll take a cue from that. I think most people at a gut level would be excited as hell to have LeBron back.
Yeah. All right. Now we've spent 18 minutes and we haven't gotten to the topic. So we'll do this on the other side. See, this is the thing. This is why I want this. I literally will pod every hour. Okay. I don't know if everybody else wants that, but I literally will pod every hour. Okay. InsurancebyLynette.com. She'll listen to all of them too, which we appreciate. Car insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance, any kind of insurance. Lynette is your person to go to. It's A Aggressive Insurance Company based in Lauderhill, Florida, 954-581-8800. It's 954-581-8800. Again, it's insurancebyLynette.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that down here on the crawl. Probably Lynette's watching on YouTube too. So when you comment, make sure to say hello to her. And again, reach out to her. Always a smiling face, knows absolutely what she's doing in this industry. And again, huge Miami Heat fan. 954-581-8800. All right, so you mentioned this at the start, so let's do this. This idea that LeBron James is a significantly declining basketball player is not true, similar to this narrative that was spread about Durant a little bit during these conversations. There is some advanced metric data that is not as kind. His on-off numbers last year were not great. They were better a lot of the time, the Lakers, without him on the floor than they were with him on the floor. And that is not obviously what's been the case throughout the course of his career. His raw numbers, though, are just fine. He played 35 minutes a game last year in 70 games. Okay. This is not a player who's being load managed in a significant way. Okay. He played 71 the previous year. So he's missed a total of 23 games over the past 2 years.
That's like a revelation in itself.
That's not bad. Right. Exactly. I mean, those are Bam-like numbers. Okay. Or pretty close to Bam-like numbers. We know Bam has been the most durable player on the Heat. His numbers slipped a little this year, but not in any significant way. He slipped to 24.4 points, which is his lowest, I guess, since we got to go all the way back to his rookie season. Okay. But he still shot 51.3% from the floor. That's a little down from the previous year, but it's mostly because his 3-point shooting attempts went up and the percentage dipped from 41 to 38, but he's still shooting 38% from three. I mean, when he was in Miami, his shooting percentages from three were 33, 36, 41. That was during what I think was maybe the greatest single season we've seen, which is the 12-13 season, where he shot 41% from three and 38% is last year in Miami. So he's still highly efficient from three. He's actually shooting it on more volume these days than he used to, but that's because he's not getting to the cup quite as easily. He shoots 78% from the line, which, by the way, is something that's actually improved over the course of his career. And he averaged 8 rebounds and 8 assists this past year, which, I mean, literally just mark it down. That's what he does. He's going to get you 25, 8, and 8. This is still an elite basketball player. He's still top 15 in the world, okay, who can be top 5 on a given night, plays a lot. And Eric Spoelstra had a vision for him that he was just starting to buy into, and then he left, which was, we play you at the 4, and you basically play point forward. And the fact that he's a spacer now also means that you could do this, and I don't know that Bam would mind playing the 5. And then you bring in Kel'el Ware, if he's still here, and then you have another lob threat that LeBron can find there. So just purely on basketball terms, then we'll get into compensation here. But I don't know how people could argue against this other than I thought they were going to go young. But like I said with KD, yes, go young, okay? Don't bring in DeRozan, okay? But this is not DeRozan, right?
Yeah, you stay open-minded to opportunistic moments. And if LeBron all of a sudden, remember everybody, he has a no-trade clause. So there's a couple things. You have to go to his representation and convince them that he would want to come there. And then they basically have to go to the Lakers and say, guess what? We would be willing to go to this place for these talks to even start because he has a no trade clause. It's such a degree of control when he opted in. And let's remind everybody, he opted in. This is the first time he opted in. He always opts out and then gets more money, right? But he opted into this last year of the deal. And the Lakers didn't even announce it.
No,
they're, in my
they're
view,
so done with him.
They're moving in the Luka direction, and and if LeBron is going to be a part of that, I think that they probably would hope that he would. One, because there's marketability there, but also they're going to be a better basketball team if they have LeBron. But it seems like they're going in another direction. In Miami, this is the thing with him. He can't necessarily be like that 1A player that gets you through a season and then gets you through 16 playoff wins. I think that there is, that's a lot to ask of him, right? But he can do it in spurts. And so with Miami, it would be a matter of just getting into the playoffs in the right seeding so that matchups are home quarter to your advantage. And then you do have a shot. And it is the East. And there's also the question marks with the teams in the East. So I think from a basketball perspective, Bam doesn't mind playing the 5 when he's with Team USA. And I know that this is a different layer of basketball, and there's obviously bigger players, and there would be some nights where the team would have to size up. And the beauty of LeBron is that very much like Bam, he can guard multiple positions. His defense has slipped. I do want to say, you talk about other places that have slipped. This is one of them. But compared to some of the guys that the Heat have had out there in recent memory, he's not a worse defender than Max Strus was or something like that. So it hasn't slipped that much. And so I just think he would fit and he would get to be a 1A in the moments that required him to be. And I still think that you would have players, maybe, I don't know what the roster would look like around him. There's a lot of question marks, but if you take it at face value that they would somehow have Hero, Bam, and LeBron, like I could see Hero having a really successful offensive season with LeBron guiding the attempts and things like that and running the offense. I think that there's no doubt that he would help them, and you make the exception and you can still keep young guys around. Even though it's kind of LeBron's farewell, which is, it plays into this too. I think we should recognize that if he did his farewell tour in Miami, that also has its, there's an allure to that. We
puts a bow on it.
Dwayne.
Yeah, it puts a bow on it. He knows they'll do it right. But there's a few reasons why I think this makes sense. First thing, don't forget Powell too, because I think Powell playing off LeBron would be really helpful. Here's from LeBron's perspective, okay, which I don't know, but this is why I could see it being somewhat attractive to him. First, he still likes the city. I know that. And his family likes the city. So that's part of it. I assume that Bronny would come in any trade.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, if I want my son to develop, why wouldn't you want that to be in a developmental organization that he's already comfortable with? I mean, he was around the team he knows the people inside that building. We used to see him running around all the time, just like we would see Timmy's kid running around all the time. Now he's running around the NBA, okay, all the rest of that. So I think that could be interesting. I think from his perspective, also the East. I mean, why be out West right now? This is what we said with KD. That is a total slugfest. That conference is going to be better than it's ever been, and that conference has been better than the East for basically the past quarter century. Okay, so come East, and you got a clearer path there. If that still matters to him, which it may or may not. The relationship with Spoelstra would be easy to slide back into, but also here's the other part of it. Yes, there's an allure to playing with Luka, no question. Okay, but that team ain't winning anything because of what you said. Luka's not a good defender, even though he's slimmed down, and LeBron at this stage is not really a plus defender. And I don't think that there's the defensive backbone with that team going forward. I don't know that JJ is going to put that in place like Spo can. And at least in Miami, you've got Bam. Mm-hmm. You've got a pit bull guard in Davion Mitchell, who's a defender. Now we'll talk about the Wiggins part of this, but there are players with a defensive mindset on the roster. And if Ware's still there, again, there's a lot that has to be learned there. We found that over the course of Summer League. But there is another shot blocker behind him, which will allow LeBron to kind of take some possessions off, which he's going to do. So, again, you can't look at him as the same type of player that he was. But Spo's vision, again, for him was as a 4 as he aged, okay? And the fact that LeBron has become a better, more consistent three-point shooter over time and still is a top 5 passer in the world. Okay, that will never change. His innate ability to pass the ball, which to me was the thing that separated him from Jimmy as a player. Like Jimmy did incredible things with what he's been given, but the ability to see the floor with LeBron is just it's otherworldly. It is. Michael didn't have that. Okay, Michael had things that LeBron doesn't have, but Michael didn't have that. And you want to talk about juicing an offense, getting a passer like that in the offense here. And here's the other part. This quote that Spoelstra used the other day that first time I heard him use it was a year ago, and then I used it again on a podcast, and he said it again. This quote where he says, how you do anything is how you do everything, which is like Spo's new pet phrase. He used that quote. The first time I'd ever heard him say that was when I was asking him about LeBron in the Olympics. And he was talking about LeBron's preparation and his work ethic. He said specifically, I tell my guys all the time, tell my players, how you do anything is how you do everything. He used LeBron as the example when he was talking to me about that.
Yeah.
So I know he comes with a circus. I understand. It's a little less of a circus than it used to be because the interest is starting to fade because everybody knows he's not the same player that he was. I understand that. And you may not want to deal with that. I get it. But the example he would set in terms of preparation for some of the young guys on this team, just like KD would have set that example, I do think that has value, okay? And so I think it's a value relationship both ways. All right, but let's do this because we're going to do more podcasts on this. We're already at 30 minutes. The reason we're even entertaining this is not because I've heard they're getting LeBron. It's because LeBron doesn't seem to have a lot of options right now. Mm-hmm. And as you said, he's not a free agent, so he can't just choose and force his way. But I
Which
still
he
think
chose this route, though. He opted in
he did, but he still has leverage because he's LeBron and
with
because
a
the
no trade
media
clause.
follows. And in no trade clause, he has no trade clause. He has media leverage, okay, because they talk about him all the time. And he can make things very uncomfortable just because of who he is and because Rich Paul's really good at throwing stuff out there and saying, oh, I didn't say that.
I mean, they put out a statement when he opted in and basically said, like, listen, we're opting in. They basically said we're taking our money, but we want you to know, LA, that we want to compete for a title. So if you're on a different timeline, that's not really cool with us. And that's basically what they said, in layman's terms in a statement. Like they wield so much power around the league. Clutch does in general. Rich Paul does. LeBron does. And so the question would be, does he think that Miami is a good enough team with him in place to make a run in the East? Because he would have to decide that. And then you talked about options. Like, what are the other options? Go to the other team in LA and play for the Clippers. Go to the Mavericks, who I've heard don't want to send out the $53 million in expiring contracts. It sounds like LA only wants expiring. So
yes.
So it's just, there's a lot of moving parts, and he doesn't have a lot of teams that it appears are begging to bring him to their organization. And that's a weird spot for LeBron James and his camp probably to be in.
Well, and I think you look at Rich Paul's comment, it feels to me a little bit like they know that the Lakers are moving on from him. And so they wanted to be the ones to come out and say, okay, well then if that's it. So it's like, take the control back of that situation because so much of this is image related. Here's the thing about Dallas. Okay. I get the appeal of Dallas because he could go play with two guys that have been his number two before, right? Kyrie and Anthony Davis. And even though that general manager doesn't seem to know what he's doing, there are players there, I think, that they could make a run. But again, you're in the West, and I just wonder psychologically, like going to Dallas, like Dallas is the site of his biggest disappointment, of his biggest embarrassment over the course of his illustrious career.
And they just drafted Cooper Flag. So they're going to ultimately say, we're on the Cooper Flag timeline, right?
Right. But also, like, what are they going to do? They're going to bring JJ Barea to practice? Like, to me, going to Dallas for him, like that does not feel. It's not like quite KD going to Golden State because there are different circumstances involved. But like, Dallas is associated with him in a very negative way. That one doesn't, and he cares about that kind of stuff. So that one would surprise me. The Clippers. Like, okay, I understand Ballmer has a ton of money, and there's a lot of avenues that could open up to LeBron business-wise through that.
His family doesn't have to go anywhere.
His family doesn't have to go anywhere, and the new facility is apparently beautiful and gorgeous and over the top and all the rest of this stuff. But they're still the Clippers. They're always going to be the Clippers. It doesn't matter who they've brought in. They still are the second team in LA, and then he's going to be dealing with, like, he's going to have more against him than for him in that city. Because it's always a Laker town. It's always going to be a Laker town. And so other than the intra-city rivalry between him and Luka, which they seem to like each other, it doesn't really exist. That one doesn't make sense. So again, you start to narrow it down and you're like, where can he go? So let's do this. And I guess maybe we'll do a second episode on this because we're already at 33 minutes. If they only want expirings, Wiggins is not expiring. Okay.
So you'd have to flip him for an expiring at some point.
Right. Now, Rozier isn't expiring, but according to Chris Haynes, and now Barry Jackson has also reported this, the investigation into Rozier on the gambling stuff has not been cleared. Shams implied that it was about a month ago. So I don't know how that impacts this. I mean, Rozier is an expiring contract. That's what the value is right now. You would have to, you're right. You would have to flip Wiggins for something else. Then there's something, then this one was thrown to me. I mean, I don't want to light a fire here, but if you're not comfortable giving Tyler Hero the extension that he seeks.
Oh, yeah. I think it's totally a conversation to have. I know where you're going. You're saying, could Tyler be part of the offer? I think totally. I think that there's a chance that they would want Khalil Ware. And also this is what was floated by Zach Lowe. And so I'm just going to bring this up. Do you, and it's because I'm interested in your perspective on this. Do you think LeBron cares what the trade package looks like for him? Like from optics perspective, like if he were to go for too little, that like his camp wouldn't really like that. Like, does that make sense what I'm asking?
It's funny because that's the actual opposite of what it used to be, because with him before it was always, okay, what's still left there, right? Like, but and that's how a lot of players think, and that's the fatal mistake that Carmelo Anthony made in his career. Because he didn't consider that when he was traded from Denver to New York. And if he had just waited until the offseason, they could have kept, I believe it was Gallinari, Wilson Chandler, Mozgov were the primary pieces. And they could have kept those players. And then they really would have had a championship type core because they were bringing in they had Stoudemire and all the rest of this. And you keep Gallinari on that team with Wilson Chandler, that team might have won a title. He didn't do that. And of course, they never got past the big three. I think that was always more LeBron's concern before, was like, what's still on the roster when I go there? I mean, again, even going to Cleveland, remember, the Wiggins trade for K-Love was kind of in the holster for them at the time for him going there. So it was like, oh, I want to go play with all the young players. Right. I want to go play with all the young. Remember the Sports Illustrated essay by Lee Jenkins? Going to go play with all the young players. Like, well, wait a second. Wiggins is being moved, and he's the number one pick of the draft. Do I think the optics matter that much? I in the other sense, I don't necessarily think so. I think
agree with you, by the way. I think that he's over that kind of stuff.
I don't think it matters. I think that, I mean, I don't think it's a little humbling. I think that there aren't a lot of teams like racing to get him right now, but also you might have a hella motivated LeBron James.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is where
I'll take my chances with LeBron and Bam. Like, that's just where I'm at with it. Like, I
know we're fanboying this, but yes, downloads, I get it, but I'm just like, I just don't ever see the downside of bringing in a top 2 or 3 player in NBA history who still can get to a high level at times. I understand why the Lakers want to move on, because for them at this stage, if they've got this, they were basically gifted Luka for free. Okay. I mean, Anthony Davis isn't free, but I mean, come on. I mean, you're talking about Luka could have gone for 10 first-round picks. Okay. So they basically given him for a third. What, AD's going to be 33 this year. They're and we know that his health can be up and down. So they basically get him in this regard. And now they're like, okay, well, now we pivot, new ownership. Jeannie's still there, but how long? We know with new ownership, this stuff changes over time. And it's kind of like, okay. And she was always, I mean, this is, again, a Kobe organization. Okay. That's the, I mean, I know Magic and Shaq and everybody's played there, but this has been about Kobe, and LeBron was never going to surpass Kobe in the fans' eyes out there. And so it's kind of like, okay, now maybe we get Luka, we build with him. He's younger. He's gotten in shape this offseason. I get wanting to move on and not deal with the LeBron circus, which always comes with it. But if you're the Heat, you've dealt with it before. Jimmy was more of a circus behind the scenes, as I said, than LeBron was. And I think if you can have a conversation with LeBron and say, look, we want you to end your career in the best possible way. We're not going to burden you with some of the things you used to be burdened with, or you've been burdened with in other places. Okay. Bam's going to be our primary defender inside. We've got a couple shooters around. If they keep Hero, then they got Hero and Powell. Okay. And LeBron's essentially playing point forward, and you put him in I know he doesn't want to bang in the post and all the rest of that, but on offense, you get him some post touches. You get his ability to see the floor, the skip passes, all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm seeing it in my head. You think Spo isn't? I mean, come on. Like, this is – so, yes, explore it. Do I think it's going to happen? No, right? It's not. This is not happening, right?
I don't think so. I think the most likely scenario is LeBron just spends another year in L.A., keeps his family there. They were, the 3 seed? So, I mean, we can't act like they weren't. Right. They got exposed, obviously, and we'll see if DeAndre Ayton and I think they added Jake LaRavia, however you say his last name. We'll see if any of those additions really matter, but they're not moving at LeBron's pace, and the Lakers are not taking their cues from LeBron James. And so I just wonder how that weighs on him as the season and wears on him on the season as the season comes up. Like I'm interested to see if just quietly you start to hear more and more there. Then you hear like at the deadline, it's just, it makes for a weird season for the Lakers particularly. And they're trying to make an impression on Luka right now.
Yes.
So how they handle LeBron matters. So it'll be an interesting thing to watch. I just don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. So it's worth us doing 40 minutes, but probably we'll have to wait before we do any more on this to see what develops.
I just wanted to go as many minutes as Brady and Alex went on a meaningless summer league game.
Exactly.
So if either of them are still listening right now, this is what LeBron James 41
gets 40 minutes.
Summer league game 13. Okay. Anyway, appreciate everybody. Sponsors, insurancebylenet.com, and also Prize Picks. Use the code FIV.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.